The royal flagship Eternal Dawn hung suspended in space like a dark jewel, its crystalline hull refracting starlight into prismatic fractals across the void. Inside, Empress Naira of the Istrian Empire paced the observation deck, her violet skin luminescent with barely contained fury. "Tell me again," she commanded, her voice a controlled tempest. "How my daughter, heir to 7-star systems and protector of the celestial concordance, vanished from the nursery chambers of the most secure vessel in the Empire." The royal advisor, Javan, a tall blue-skinned Istrian with bioluminescent markings pulsing anxiously along his temples, swallowed hard. "Your Radiance, the perpetrators utilized technology beyond our understanding. They created a localized fold in spacetime. The security crystals recorded nothing but a momentary shimmer, and then Princess Solara was gone." Naira's eyes, iridescent pools of silver flecked with starlight, narrowed dangerously. Her hand unconsciously moved to the ceremonial blade at her hip, an ancient weapon forged from a dying star. "And the trail leads to a primitive world in the Orion Spur. The inhabitants call it Earth." Naira turned toward the vast view screen. Beyond it, galaxies spun in their endless dance. Somewhere among those countless stars, her 3-month-old daughter, the last of her bloodline after the devastating Nebula Wars, was lost. "Prepare my personal transport," she said, her voice hardening into diamond. "I will retrieve her myself." "Your Radiance," Javan protested. "The Celestial Council would never approve the Empress abandoning her throne to—" "The Celestial Council," Naira interrupted, her silver eyes flashing, "did not carry Solara beneath their heart for 16 moon cycles. They did not whisper ancient star songs to her as she grew within. They did not feel her first kick alongside the supernova of Altair 7. She stepped closer to Javan, her height imposing. "I am not abandoning my throne. I am fulfilling my most sacred duty as Empress, protecting the future of our people." Within hours, Naira stood in the launch bay, dressed not in her usual ceremonial robes, but in battle armor that hugged her lithe frame like a second skin. The transport ship, sleek, predatory, and equipped with the most advanced cloaking technology in the Empire, awaited her. "We've calibrated the quantum drive for Earth's solar system," said Tarek, her most trusted general. The red scales covering his muscular form rippled with concern. "But your Radiance, we know little of this world. Their technology is primitive, but their numbers are vast, and our intelligence suggests they fear what they do not understand." "Then they will learn to fear me specifically," Naira replied, checking the energy levels on her wrist gauntlet. Tarek's yellow eyes searched her face. "The journey will take 28 standard cycles, even with the quantum drive. Princess Solara will have been on Earth for nearly 2 of their years by the time you arrive." Naira faltered for the first time, her composure cracking like thin ice. 2 years, she whispered. Her daughter would no longer be the infant she remembered. Would Solara even recognize her mother? "I've loaded all available data on Earth culture and languages," Tarek continued. "Their planet is divided into arbitrary territories they call nations, and they communicate in thousands of different dialects." "Inefficient," Naira muttered. "Indeed, but they are remarkably adaptable creatures, and—" Tarek hesitated. "Speak freely, General. Our scans show the princess is alive and well. Her unique energy signature is stable. Someone on Earth is caring for her." Naira's jaw tightened. "Someone stole what belongs to me, to our people. Their intentions are irrelevant." As she boarded the transport, Naira activated a small holographic projector in her palm. The image of an infant with delicate violet skin and wisps of silvery hair flickered to life. Princess Solara, just days before her abduction, tiny fists reaching toward the stars projected on her nursery ceiling. "I'm coming, little one," Naira whispered. "Wait for me." The journey was interminable. Naira spent much of it in stasis, emerging periodically to review data on Earth, study its languages, and practice the physiological adjustments needed to appear more human. Her ship's AI, named Vex, kept her updated on the princess's location, a small settlement in a region called Pacific Northwest. "The human language is called English in this area," Vex informed her. "I've uploaded the dialect to your neural interface." As Earth finally appeared in her view screen, a swirling blue marble wrapped in white clouds, Naira felt a surge of contempt. How could such a backward, waterlogged planet be the prison of an Istrian princess? "Initiating atmospheric entry," Vex announced. "Cloaking systems engaged." The ship descended through clouds, the heat of entry barely registering against its advanced shields. Below, vast forests stretched toward jagged mountains. Primitive settlements dotted the landscape. "I've pinpointed the princess's energy signature," Vex said. "She's in a dwelling at the forest's edge, 7 kilometers north." Naira's heart thundered in her chest. After 2 years of searching, of diplomatic battles with the Celestial Council, of sleepless nights wondering if her daughter was suffering, the end was within reach. The ship landed in a clearing, its cloaking technology bending light around its hull to render it invisible. Naira activated her own camouflage matrix, her violet skin shifting to a pale human tone, her silver eyes darkening to brown. Only her height remained unusual by human standards. She stood nearly 7 feet tall. She stepped onto Earth for the first time, her boots sinking slightly into soft soil. The air was thick with moisture, filled with the sense of vegetation and decay. Primitive, organic, alive in a way that the sterile corridors of the eternal dawn were not. Following the signal on her wrist device, Naira moved silently through the forest. The dwelling came into view, a modest structure with wooden walls and large windows, partially hidden among tall trees. Smoke curled from a metal chimney. A primitive ground vehicle sat nearby. Naira crouched behind a large boulder, deactivating her camouflage to conserve energy. She enhanced her vision, scanning the building for life signs. 2 heartbeats, one small and rapid, Solera. One larger, the human who had her daughter. As twilight descended, lights flickered on inside the dwelling. Through a window, Naira glimpsed movement, a tall figure carrying something small. Her breath caught, her daughter so close now. With predatory patience, Naira waited until deep night fell. The larger heartbeat had slowed, the human was sleeping. Only then did she approach, silent as shadow, her hand on her weapon. The door was secured by a primitive mechanical lock that yielded instantly to her universal decoder. She stepped inside, adjusting her vision to the darkness. The dwelling was cluttered but clean. Curious objects lined shelves, instruments, books, small sculptures. Naira moved deeper into the house, following the pull of her daughter's unique energy signature. A soft sound drew her to a small room. She pushed open the door and froze. There, in a small bed surrounded by projected stars that danced across the ceiling, lay a child with violet skin that shimmed in the darkness. Her silver hair had grown into wispy curls. Tiny fingers clutched a stuffed creature. Princess Solera, her daughter. Naira moved closer, her throat tight with emotion. After 2 years, she was finally looking at her child again. She reached out a trembling hand. "Don't touch her." The voice came from behind, quiet but firm. Naira whirled, battle instincts flaring to find herself facing a human male. He held no weapon, but his stance was protective, his eyes fixed not on the strange, violet-skinned woman in his home, but on the sleeping child beyond her. "She just fell asleep," he said softly. "And trust me, you don't want to see what happens when she's cranky." Naira's hand moved to her weapon. One shot would eliminate this obstacle between her and her daughter. The human saw the movement and stepped forward, placing himself directly in her line of fire. "My name is Theo," he said, his voice steady despite the fear Naira could smell radiating from him. "And I think we should talk about Phoenix." "Phoenix," Naira whispered, confused. "That's what I named her," the human said, glancing at the sleeping child. "When she fell from the sky." And as if sensing the dramatic confrontation unfolding in her bedroom, the child chose that moment to stir. Her eyes, identical to Naira's own silver ones, fluttered open. She looked first at Theo, and a smile bloomed across her tiny face. Then she turned and saw Naira. The room grew suddenly, impossibly still. The child's eyes widened. Her little mouth formed a perfect circle of surprise. And then, in the ancient language of the Astrian royal house, a language Naira had not heard spoken in 2 long years, the child whispered a single word. Theo Walsh had never considered himself remarkable. A moderately successful composer who'd fled the chaos of Seattle for the quiet of the forest, he spent his days crafting film scores that few recognized as his, and his nights gazing at stars through a telescope that had cost him 3 months' rent. At 34, he had accepted solitude as his companion, until the night the stars fell to earth. It had been 2 years ago. He'd been on his porch, nursing a glass of whiskey and wrestling with a melody that refused to resolve when the sky tore open. A streak of silver-violet light cut across the darkness, followed by a sound like the universe catching its breath. The impact came seconds later, a tremor that rattled his cabin windows and sent his cat, Fibonacci, scurrying under the couch. Most people would have called emergency services. Theo, his curiosity always stronger than his sense of self-preservation, grabbed a flashlight and followed the trail of disturbed earth into the woods. What he found changed everything. The crater was surprisingly small, no wider than his arms outstretched. At its center, nestled in scorched soil, lay what he first mistook for a piece of exotic technology. It resembled a translucent egg pulsing with interior light. As he approached, the surface of the egg rippled, then dissolved like morning mist. Inside was a tiny infant with skin the color of twilight violets and eyes that contained galaxies. "Well," he'd said to the impossible child, "you're definitely not from around here." 2 years later, that cosmic infant had become a toddler who could manipulate light, occasionally phase through solid objects, and had once turned all the water in the bathtub into something that resembled liquid starlight. Theo had named her Phoenix. It seemed fitting for a child who had emerged from fire fallen from the sky. Now, as he stood in Phoenix's bedroom facing the tallest, most intimidating woman he'd ever seen, a woman with the same violet skin and silver eyes as his adopted daughter, Theo tried to keep his voice steady. "She's been with me for 2 years, he said, moving slowly to stand between Phoenix's bed and the alien intruder. "If you're who I think you are, I have questions." The violet-skinned woman's face was a mask of imperial composure, but Theo could see the storm beneath. "You have no right to questions, human. She is Princess Solara of the Astrian Empire, daughter of the Celestial Throne, and you have kept her from her people." "I found her abandoned in a smoking crater," Theo countered. "And I've spent 2 years protecting her, feeding her, learning what foods make her sick and what songs help her sleep. I've been up countless nights when she cried for reasons I couldn't understand. I've watched her learn to walk, to talk." He took a steadying breath. "So yes, I have questions." Phoenix, or Solara, apparently sat up in her small bed, her silver eyes darting between the two adults. "Mama," she said again in that strange, melodic language. Then switching to English, "Theo, why is the Star Lady in my room?" The regal woman's composure cracked slightly at the child's words. She knelt down, her movements suddenly gentle. "Solara, my starlight, do you remember me? I am your mother, Empress Naira. I've crossed galaxies to find you." Phoenix clutched her stuffed rabbit tighter. "I had dreams of you," she said, her voice small. "You sang to the stars and they sang back." Theo felt something cold and heavy settle in his chest. He'd always known this day might come, that Phoenix wasn't truly his to keep. But he'd imagined years in the future, not now, not when she still needed him to cut the crusts off her sandwiches and check under the bed for shadow monsters. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "we should continue this conversation in the living room. Phoenix needs her rest." To his surprise, the Empress Naira nodded stiffly. "Very well." Phoenix looked anxiously at Theo. "Will you come back? Will you read the star book?" "Of course, kiddo, just 5 minutes with our guest." As they moved to the living room, Theo felt like he was walking through a dream. The woman's presence filled his modest cabin like an ancient deity had descended into a folk tale. She perched on the edge of his worn sofa with the air of someone evaluating a primitive artifact. "How did she come to be here?" Naira asked without preamble. "My daughter was abducted from the royal nursery 2 Earth years ago." Theo ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. "Like I said, she fell from the sky, literally. There was a light and impact. I found her in what looked like some kind of pod. It dissolved when I touched it." "A quantum escape pod," Naira murmured, "activated only in the most extreme danger." Her silver eyes narrowed. "This changes matters. I believed she had been stolen by smugglers." "Well, I'm not a smuggler. I'm a composer who happened to be in the right place at the right time." Theo gestured around his modest living room. "As you can see, no nefarious alien kidnapping operation here. Just a guy doing his best to raise a child who can occasionally walk through walls." A ghost of something, perhaps amusement, flickered across Naira's face. She manifested phase shifting already. Impressive. Astrian children typically don't develop molecular manipulation until at least 5 years. "Yeah, well, Phoenix is full of surprises." Theo smiled despite himself, remembering the day he'd found her floating 3 feet above her crib, giggling as toys orbited around her like satellites. She started speaking in complete sentences at 14 months, both English and whatever language you were just speaking. The high celestial tongue, the language of stars. For the first time, Naira looked genuinely pensive. You've cared for her all this time, alone. I had help from a friend who's a pediatric nurse. When Phoenix got sick with something that made her skin glow and the house lights flicker, we had to get creative with treatments. Theo shrugged. But yeah, mostly just me. Why? The question seemed to surprise even Naira herself. Why taking a child so clearly not of your world? Theo thought back to that night, to the moment the translucent pod had dissolved and those silver eyes had first looked into his. Because she needed someone, and maybe I did too. He met Naira's gaze. Look, I don't understand interstellar politics or royal bloodlines, but I understand that little girl in there. I know that she loves stories about space whales and hates the color yellow. I know that she can sense emotions and gets overwhelmed in crowds. I know that when she has nightmares, the only thing that calms her is me playing the piano. Naira was silent for a long moment. Then she said, the Astrian royal family has always had a deep connection to music. Our genetic memory carries melodies from the formation of the first stars. She hums when she draws, Theo offered, tunes I've never heard before. Star songs, Naira's voice softened slightly. I sang them to her before she was born. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. Finally, Theo asked the question that had been tightening his throat since the moment this otherworldly woman had appeared in his home. You've come to take her away, haven't you? Naira's posture stiffened again. She is the heir to the Astrian Empire, the last of my bloodline. Our people need her. And what about what Phoenix needs? Theo challenged. She's 2 years old. This is the only home she remembers. I'm the only family she knows. I am her mother, Naira said, a dangerous edge creeping into her voice. And I'm the one who's raised her, Theo countered. The one who's been there every day of her life on Earth. Before Naira could respond, a small voice called from the hallway. Theo, the stars are making noise again. Both adults turned to see Phoenix standing in the doorway, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dimness. She padded over to Theo and climbed onto his lap without hesitation. What kind of noise, kiddo? He asked gently. Singing like in my dreams. She looked at Naira with undisguised curiosity. Are you really my mother from the stars? Naira's imperial mask slipped further, revealing something raw and yearning beneath. Yes, little one, you are Princess Solara, heir to the celestial throne. Phoenix considered this with the serious contemplation only a toddler could muster. Do I have to go away now? The question hung in the air like a suspended note. Theo's arms tightened protectively around Phoenix, but he said nothing, waiting. Naira stood, her full height intimidating in the confines of the small cabin. The Astrian throne cannot remain empty. Our enemies circle like scavengers. The Void Dominion grows stronger each cycle, pushing against our borders. She looked at Phoenix with an expression Theo couldn't fully decipher. But you are still very young. Perhaps arrangements could be made. Hope fluttered in Theo's chest. What kind of arrangements? I must consult with the Celestial Council. There are protocols, traditions dating back millennia. Naira's gaze shifted from Phoenix to Theo. But it seems my daughter has formed attachments here. Theo plays the star music, Phoenix said earnestly, and he makes good pancakes with blueberries. A flicker of something, was it jealousy, pain, crossed Naira's face. I see. Look, Theo said carefully, I know I have no real claim to her, but I love her, and she deserves stability, security, all the things a child needs. And you believe a primitive Earth dwelling provides this better than the royal palaces of 7-star systems? Naira's tone was skeptical, but not entirely dismissive. I believe that love matters more than palaces, Theo replied simply. The Empress was silent for a long moment. Then she reached out and with surprising gentleness touched Phoenix's cheek. I must return to my ship before dawn. There are matters I must attend to. Her eyes met Theo's. I will return tomorrow night. We will discuss possibilities. Relief and anxiety warred in Theo's chest. We'll be here. As Naira moved toward the door, Phoenix suddenly squirmed out of Theo's arms and ran to the Empress. She tugged on Naira's hand until the tall woman knelt down. I dreamed about you, Phoenix said solemnly. You were sad. Are you still sad? Naira's composure faltered completely. She touched Phoenix's silver hair with trembling fingers. I am less sad now that I've found you. Theo says it's okay to be sad sometimes. He gets sad too, but then we make cookies and the sad gets smaller. A sound escaped Naira that might have been a laugh or a sob. Does it? Phoenix nodded with absolute certainty. You should stay for cookies next time. Perhaps I will, little star. Naira rose to her full height, composure returning. She looked at Theo with an expression both regal and uncertain. Until tomorrow, then. After she left, Theo sat with Phoenix in the rocking chair by the window, staring out at the night sky that suddenly seemed much closer, much more immediate than before. She's pretty, Phoenix said, yawning, but she doesn't smile like you do. I think she hasn't had much to smile about, kiddo. Theo rested his chin gently on Phoenix's head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and that indefinable something that always reminded him of ozone after lightning. But maybe we can teach her. As Phoenix drifted to sleep in his arms, Thea wondered what tomorrow would bring. Would Naira take her daughter and vanish back into the stars? Would Theo be left alone again in his cabin with only memories of a child who could pull down starlight? One thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same. For 2 years he had been guardian to a miracle, a celestial child who had crashed into his life and filled it with wonder. Now the stars had come to reclaim their own, and Theo didn't know if his human heart could survive the loss. But as he held Phoenix's sleeping form, feeling her gentle alien warmth against his chest, he made a silent promise. To her, to himself, perhaps even to the imperious empress who had crossed galaxies to find her child. Whatever happened next, Phoenix's happiness would come first, even if it tore his heart in two. Outside, stars wheeled across the night sky, ancient and patient. Somewhere above, an empress's ship hung in orbit, invisible to Earth's primitive sensors. And in a small cabin nestled among towering pines, a human man held a star child close, savoring each moment as if it might be his last. Dawn was still hours away, for now at least they had time. Naira did not return to her ship that night. Instead, she found herself walking through the Earth forest, its ancient trees reaching toward stars they would never touch. How primitive this world was, how fragile and temporary. Yet something about its rawness stirred memories of Astrian stories, tales of the first worlds, where her ancestors had walked among elemental forces before mastering them. Dawn found her perched on a cliff edge, watching the sun crawl above the horizon in a blaze of pink and gold. Her royal advisors would be scandalized, an empress, sitting on bare rock, watching a common stellar event on a backwater planet. But for the first time in 2 years, Naira felt something besides duty and vengeance. She had found Solara. Her daughter lived, breathed, spoke, had grown from infant to child under alien skis, under the care of a human. The humans, Theo. Naira's fingers curled against the stone. By all rights, she should have eliminated him instantly. Any obstacle between an empress and her heir was, by definition, an enemy of the empire. Yet something had stayed her hand. Perhaps it was the way Solara, Phoenix, he called her, had looked at him with such trust, or the casual confidence with which he had placed himself between Naira and the child, knowing full well he stood no chance against her superior strength and technology. Fool, she murmured, but there was little heat behind it. She engaged her wrist communicator. Vex, run a complete analysis on the human Theo Walsh. Analysis complete, the AI responded almost instantly. Theodore James Walsh, age 34 Earth years, occupation musical composer for visual media, no criminal record, no living family, financial status modest but stable, educational background includes. Medical data, Naira interrupted. One significant injury 5 years ago, spinal trauma from a vehicular accident resulting in chronic pain. Otherwise healthy. No genetic abnormalities. Brain scans show unusual activity in the temporal lobe associated with musical processing. And his relationship to my daughter. A pause then, uncertain. Records indicate he became the child's legal guardian through Earth's primitive adoption system. Documentation suggests he found her abandoned. Vex's artificial voice somehow conveyed skepticism. However, behavioral analysis of their interaction shows attachment patterns consistent with a strong parental bond. The child displays secure attachment, healthy neurological development, and appropriate emotional responses. The human exhibits all biological and psychological markers of parental devotion. Naira frowned. This was inconvenient. She had expected to find her daughter traumatized, imprisoned, or at best tolerated by whoever had taken her. Instead, she had found Solera thriving under the care of a human who clearly loved her as his own. The sun had fully cleared the horizon now, bathing the landscape in golden light. In the distance, she could see the human's dwelling, smoke curling from its chimney. They would be awake now. The human would be preparing nutrition for her daughter, perhaps engaging in morning rituals. With surprising reluctance, Naira stood and activated her camouflage matrix. She needed more information before their next encounter, and there was only one way to get it. Theo was teaching Phoenix to flip pancakes when he felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Someone was watching them. "Higher, Theo, I wanted to touch the ceiling." Phoenix giggled, her silver eyes sparkling as the pancake rose and fell. "Any higher and Fibonacci gets breakfast instead of us," Theo laughed, nodding toward the orange cat watching intently from the counter. He kept his tone light, but his eyes scanned the tree line visible through the kitchen window. There, a shimmer like heat rising from pavement. The alien empress hadn't left after all. "Hey, Phoenix," he said casually, "why don't you go pick out a book for after breakfast? The special one about the space whale." "Melvin the Magnificent," Phoenix clapped, then skipped off to her room. The moment she was gone, Theo called out, "I can see you, you know." "Well, sort of. There's a distortion by the big cedar tree." Silence, then the air rippled, and Naira materialized, looking distinctly displeased at being detected. "Your visual acuity is unexpected," she said, stepping onto the porch. Theo shrugged, flipping another pancake. "I've spent 2 years watching for unusual phenomena. Phoenix does something impossible at least twice a day." He gestured with the spatula. "Want breakfast? I make enough for an army since Phoenix's metabolism is enthusiastic." Naira looked genuinely perplexed by the invitation. After a moment of apparent internal debate, she entered through the open door, ducking slightly to clear the frame. "Your dwelling is unnecessarily combustible," she observed, eyeing the wooden walls. "Yeah, well, not all of us can afford star metal or whatever your palace is made of." Theo slid a stack of pancakes onto a plate. "Blueberries okay? Phoenix loves them, but I've got plain too." "Blueberries are acceptable." Naira sat at the small kitchen table, looking comically oversized for the human furniture. She studied the pancakes with scientific curiosity. "These contain simple carbohydrates, plant matter, and avian reproductive material." "Most people just say eggs, but sure." Theo placed the plate before her along with a bottle of maple syrup. "Fair warning, Phoenix will probably bombard you with questions when she comes back. She's curious about everything, especially anything related to space." As if on cue, Phoenix bounded back into the kitchen, a large picture book clutched to her chest. She stopped short when she saw Naira, her eyes widening. "You came back," she said, sounding surprised and pleased. "I did." Naira's voice softened almost imperceptibly. Phoenix climbed onto the chair next to the Empress, kneeling so she could reach the table properly. "Are you having pancakes too? Theo makes the best pancakes in the galaxy." "I doubt he has tested them throughout the galaxy," Naira said seriously, then, catching Theo's amused look, added more gently, "But they appear well-constructed." Theo watched as Phoenix chattered away, asking Naira questions about stars and planets with names he couldn't pronounce. The Empress answered each one with surprising patience, occasionally glancing at Theo as if to gauge his reaction. For his part, Theo tried to focus on making breakfast and not on the fact that a literal alien empress was sitting at his kitchen table, earnestly explaining the life cycle of binary star systems to a 2-year-old. "And that's why the Draconis Nebula appears purple to human eyes," Naira was saying when Theo finally sat down with his own breakfast. Phoenix nodded seriously. "I drew it once with the sparkly crayons." "She did," Theo confirmed. "It's on the refrigerator, actually looked like NASA imagery, which was enlightening." Naira's silver eyes flicked to the child's drawing magnetized to the appliance, a swirling purple mass dotted with impossibly accurate stellar formations. "You remember the nebula from before your birth. Genetic memory is strong in the royal bloodline." Phoenix seemed less interested in her genetic memory than in pouring a small ocean of maple syrup over her pancakes. "Theo, can we show the Star Lady my space room after breakfast?" "Her name is Empress Naira," Theo gently corrected, "and it's up to her." Naira looked momentarily thrown by being consulted on such a mundane matter. "I would find that informative." Breakfast continued with an awkward truce, Phoenix happily oblivious to the tension vibrating between the adults. When they finished, she led Naira by the hand, a liberty the Empress seemed too stunned to resist, to her bedroom. Theo followed, leaning against the doorframe as Phoenix proudly showed off her space-themed room. The ceiling was covered in glow-in-the-dark stars that Theo had painstakingly arranged to match actual constellations. Bookshelves overflowed with picture books about space, and a mobile of the solar system hung above her bed. But it was the wall murals that caught Naira's attention, because Theo hadn't painted them. Phoenix had created them herself, using her strange abilities to somehow embed actual starlight into the wall paint. The result was a breathtaking panorama of cosmic vistas that no human telescope had ever captured. This, Naira said softly, touching one particular swirl of silver-blue light, is the celestial falls on Astrian Prime. The royal palace overlooks them. She turned to Phoenix. How did you know to create this? Phoenix shrugged. I see it when I dream. The water goes up instead of down and it sings. Naira's composure faltered. She knelt before Phoenix, searching her face. What else do you see in your dreams, little one? Lots of things, tall buildings made of crystal, people with purple and blue skin, a big room with a floating chair. Phoenix tilted her head. Sometimes I see you. You're wearing a crown of stars and you look sad. Theo watched as something complicated moved across Naira's face. Loss, longing, perhaps even shame. For the first time, he saw not an imperious alien empress but a mother who had lost her child and searched the cosmos to find her again. I think Phoenix and I should give you some time to look around, he said gently. I need to clean up the kitchen, and someone promised to help load the dishwasher. Phoenix nodded solemnly. The forks go pointy side down or Theo gets grumpy as they left. Theo glanced back to see Naira standing amid the star-painted walls, her fingers tracing cosmic landscapes. Later, while Phoenix from a child's dreams, a battle Theo won daily of a home she had never known. The adults found themselves on the cabin's wraparound porch. Naira stood at the railing, watching a pair of deer graze at the forest's edge. Your world is chaotic, she observed, untamed. That's what I like about it. Theo settled into a rocking chair, wincing slightly as his back protested. The old injury from the car accident always flared up when he was stressed. It's real, messy, alive. The Astrian Empire values order above all. Our cities are planned to perfection, our society structured for maximum efficiency and harmony. Sounds boring, Theo said, then immediately regretted his bluntness. To his surprise, Naira didn't take offense. Perhaps to human sensibilities, we find comfort in pattern in the mathematical precision of stellar movements. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the creak of Theo's chair and distant birdsong. She is happy here, Naira finally said, her voice uncharacteristically uncertain. I've done my best. Theo's fingers tapped a restless rhythm on the armrest. Look, I know I can't compete with an interstellar empire or royal palaces. I can't teach her about her heritage or her powers. But I can promise you that every decision I've made since finding her has been with her well-being in mind. I believe you, Naira turned to face him, her expression grave, which makes this significantly more complicated. Because in your scenario, you just grab Phoenix and zip back to space, empire intact, succession secure. Essentially, yes. Theo leaned forward. And what happens to her when you return? Will she have friends? Will anyone read her bedtime stories? Will they love her for herself and not just as an imperial asset? Naira's eyes flashed dangerously. Do not presume to lecture me on my daughter's welfare. The Astrian royal education is the finest in 17 star systems. She will have companions carefully selected for compatibility, tutors for every discipline, servants to attend her every need. But will she have someone who knows that she's afraid of thunderstorms, that she likes the crusts cut off her sandwiches, that sometimes when she's overtired she accidentally makes all the electronics in the house go haywire? Theo shook his head. Phoenix isn't just a princess or an heir, she's a little girl. I am aware, Naira snapped. Then more quietly, I am aware, but there are larger concerns at play. The Astrian Empire spans 7 central systems and protects dozens more. Without clear leadership, it will fragment. Rival factions will tear it apart. Billions of lives depend on the stability of the throne. So your solution is to take a toddler away from the only home she remembers and thrust her into galactic politics. Naira's jaw tightened. I would not expect a human to understand dynastic responsibilities. Maybe not, Theo conceded. But I understand Phoenix, and ripping her away from everything familiar will traumatize her, no matter how fancy your palace is. Before Naira could respond, a small voice called from inside. Theo, the ice cream truck is coming. Theo frowned. There's no ice cream truck out here. We're miles from. A high-pitched whine cut through the air, growing rapidly louder. Naira's posture changed instantly from regal to predatory. She activated her wrist device, scanning the sky. Get inside, she ordered. Now. What is it? Theo was already moving toward the door. A scavenger vessel, Meldonian design. Her voice was cold with fury. They're bounty hunters. Someone knows I've found the princess. Bounty hunters? Theo's blood ran cold. Coming for Phoenix. Most likely. Naira's battle armor materialized around her, flowing like liquid metal until she was encased in gleaming protective gear. The Void Dominion would pay handsomely for Astrian royal blood. Inside, Phoenix stood at the living room window, her silver eyes wide as she watched the sky. Above the tree line, a ship appeared, sleek, predatory, and decidedly not human in design. Unlike Naira's elegant vessel, this one bristled with obvious weapons. Bad ship, Phoenix whispered, pressing a small hand against the glass. Theo scooped her up. We need to hide, kiddo. It's like our game, remember? The super quiet game. Naira followed them inside, her face grim. Your dwelling offers minimal protection. My ship is equipped with defensive capabilities, but it's concealed 2 kilometers east. There's a cellar, Theo said, already moving toward the kitchen. Storm shelter. Old owner was paranoid about tornadoes. As he pulled open the trapdoor hidden under a worn rug, the first blast hit. The cabin shuddered, dust raining from the ceiling beams. Phoenix whimpered, burying her face in Theo's neck. Down now. Naira pushed them toward the cellar steps, her body positioned between them and the windows. The shelter was small but solidly built, with concrete walls and emergency supplies. Thea fumbled for the solar lantern as Naira sealed the door behind them. They're jamming communications, she growled, tapping furiously at her wrist device. I can't contact Vex to activate remote defenses. Another explosion rocked the ground above them. Phoenix began to cry, silent tears streaming down her violet cheeks. Hey, it's okay, Starlight, Theo murmured, holding her close. We're safe down here. They found me, Phoenix whispered, her voice eerily adult. The bad ones from my dreams, the ones who took me from the Star Castle. Naira's head snapped up. You remember? Phoenix nodded slowly. They had shadows for faces. They put me in the egg and sent me away because you were coming and they got scared. The Void Cult, Naira breathed. They intercepted the escape pod. Her expression hardened into something terrible. They will not touch you again, my daughter. This I swear by the first star. Another blast, closer this time. Dust rained from the ceiling. They're going to level the cabin, Theo realized. They're looking for life signs. My camouflage field can mask us temporarily, but they have scanners calibrated to Astrian biology. Naira's silver eyes gleamed in the dim light. I need to draw them away from you. What? No, Theo protested. You can't go out there alone. I am an empress of the Astrian Empire, Naira said, her voice cold as space itself. I have commanded fleets against the Void Dominion. These are mere scavengers. They're scavengers with a spaceship and big guns, and you're on foot. Another blast shook the cellar. Phoenix clung tighter to Theo, her tiny body trembling. I need you to protect her, Naira said, suddenly urgent. If I fail, if they break through, you must keep her hidden. Her abilities will emerge more strongly under threat. She can phase through solid matter, distort perception. Use that. Naira, wait. But the Empress was already moving toward the cellar door, her armor reconfiguring to its full combat mode. She paused, looking back at Phoenix with an expression of such raw emotion that Theo's protest died in his throat. Little star, Naira said softly, be brave, like the daughter of an empress should be. Phoenix reached toward her, small fingers outstretched. Don't go. Something flickered between them, a spark of silver light that danced from Phoenix's fingertips to Naira's armored hand. The Empress's eyes widened in surprise. The royal light, she whispered. So soon? Then with a nod to Theo, she was gone, slipping through the cellar door into the chaos above. In the silence that followed, Theo held Phoenix close, listening to the sounds of destruction overhead. The blasting had stopped, replaced by the whine of energy weapons and the crash of breaking glass. "She's fighting them," Phoenix said, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. "The Star Lady is very strong." "Yes, she is," Theo agreed, hoping it was true. "Your mother is very strong." Phoenix looked up at him, her expression solemn. "You're my Earth father, she's my Star mother." She said it with the simple certainty of a child stating an obvious fact. "Both." Before Theo could respond, the cellar door crashed open. He pushed Phoenix behind him, grabbing a shovel from the wall as his only weapon. But it was Naira who appeared, her armor scorched and dented, but intact. Blood from a cut above her eye streaked her violet skin with darker purple. "We must move quickly," she commanded. "I've disabled their primary weapon systems, but they've called for reinforcements." Theo asked, already knowing the answer. "Destroyed," her voice held genuine regret. "I am sorry." Theo swallowed hard. The cabin had been his sanctuary, the place he'd rebuilt his life after the accident that took his career in orchestral conducting. It had been Phoenix's only home. But buildings could be replaced, Phoenix couldn't. "Where do we go?" he asked, lifting the child into his arms. "My ship, it's our only chance to outrun them." Naira's silver eyes met his, and in them Theo saw something new: respect. "Both of you." "Both," Theo echoed, stunned. "The Void cult has seen you with the princess. They will eliminate any connection to her." Naira's expression was grim. "And she needs you, this much is evident." Phoenix looked between them, then rested her head on Theo's shoulder with absolute trust. "We're going to the stars," she said sleepily, as if this were an everyday occurrence. Theo met Naira's gaze over the child's silver hair. In that moment, something shifted between them, not quite trust, not quite alliance, but recognition. Two people from different worlds, bound by love for the same child. "Okay," he said simply, "to the stars." Outside, through the ruins of what had been his home, the forest burned. Above, distant silver ships converged like hungry predators, and between worlds, a human, an empress, and a star child began to run.